April 21st, 2018, a quiet Saturday morning in Kuala Lumpur. Dr. Fadi Al-Bach, a 35-year-old engineering professor, steps out of his apartment building to head to morning prayers. Two men on a motorcycle approach, 10 shots fired. The professor collapses on the pavement. The attackers vanish into the Malaysian traffic. Within hours, Hamas accuses Mossad. Israel remains silent. But this wasn't just another assassination. This was the elimination of a man whose expertise in drone technology had become too dangerous to ignore. Today, we're uncovering one of the most calculated operations in modern intelligence warfare. Before we dive deep into this covert operation, if you're fascinated by real espionage stories and intelligence operations, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We bring you the most compelling untold stories from the world of international intrigue every week. Now let's begin. Chapter 1. The Target. Who was Dr. Fadi Al-Bach? Dr. Fadi Al-Bach wasn't a typical academic. Born in Jabalia refugee camp in Gaza in 1983, he grew up amid the chaos of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. While many of his childhood friends took up arms, Fadi chose a different path: knowledge. His brilliance in mathematics and engineering earned him scholarships that would take him far beyond the confines of Gaza. He completed his undergraduate studies in electrical engineering in Syria, then pursued advanced degrees in Malaysia, eventually earning his doctorate in electrical power engineering from the prestigious University of Malaya. By 2018, Dr. Al-Bach had established himself as a respected lecturer at the same university. His research focused on what seemed like mundane academic topics: energy efficiency, power systems, and renewable energy solutions. His LinkedIn profile listed publications on harmonic distortion in power systems and energy management. To the casual observer, he was simply a devoted professor who taught classes, published papers, and mentored students. He had a wife and 3 young children. He attended prayers regularly at the nearby mosque. Neighbors described him as quiet, courteous, and deeply committed to his family. But intelligence agencies don't assassinate people for publishing academic papers on power grids. What made Dr. Al-Bach a target was something far more specific: his expertise in flight systems and his connections to Hamas's military wing, the Izz ad-Din al-Qassam brigades. According to intelligence sources that emerged after his death, Dr. Al-Bach wasn't just teaching electrical engineering. He was applying his knowledge to solve one of Hamas's most pressing military challenges: how to build effective, unmanned aerial vehicles that could penetrate Israeli airspace, evade sophisticated air defenses, and deliver payloads with precision. Hamas had been experimenting with drones for years, but their early attempts were crude and easily intercepted. Israeli intelligence watched as these primitive devices were shot down or crashed harmlessly in open fields. But by 2016 and 2017, something changed. The drones became more sophisticated. They flew longer distances. Their guidance systems improved dramatically. Some carried explosives. Others conducted reconnaissance missions, gathering intelligence on Israeli military positions. The Israeli Defense Forces began taking the drone threat seriously, recognizing that a new dimension of warfare was emerging from Gaza. Intelligence analysts traced this technological leap back to a small network of engineers working on behalf of Hamas, and Dr. Al-Bach's name kept appearing in their assessments. His expertise in electrical systems, control mechanisms, and flight dynamics made him invaluable to drone development. Even more concerning to Israeli intelligence was his role as a facilitator. He was recruiting talented engineering students, identifying those sympathetic to the Palestinian cause, and channeling their skills toward Hamas's military objectives. He operated in Malaysia precisely because it was safe, beyond Israel's immediate reach. In a country with no extradition treaty with Israel and a government generally sympathetic to the Palestinian cause. Malaysian security officials would later discover that Dr. Al-Bach had travelled frequently, though where exactly remained murky. His academic credentials provided perfect cover for international movement. A professor attending a conference in Turkey or Indonesia raises no suspicions, but intelligence agencies suspected these trips had dual purposes: acquiring components, meeting with Hamas operatives, and transferring knowledge that would make its way back to Gaza through circuitous routes. He was, in the assessment of Israeli intelligence, not just a scientist, but a critical node in Hamas's military supply chain, and that made him a target. Chapter 2. The Operation, Anatomy of an Assassination. The assassination of Dr. Al-Bach bore all the hallmarks of a Mossad operation, executed with the precision and audacity that has defined Israeli intelligence for decades. But pulling off a hit in Malaysia, a Muslim-majority country thousands of miles from Israel, required months of meticulous planning, deep reconnaissance, and operatives willing to work in one of the world's most challenging environments for Israeli agents. The surveillance phase likely began months before the actual killing. Mossad operatives, traveling on false passports from European countries, would have entered Malaysia quietly, blending into Kuala Lumpur's cosmopolitan population of expatriates, business people, and tourists. Their first task: establish a pattern of life for the target. When does he leave home? What routes does he take? Where are the security cameras? Are there witnesses? What time offers the best opportunity for escape? Every detail matters when you're operating in hostile territory with no official backup and no possibility of extraction by your government if things go wrong. Dr. Al-Bach's routine made him vulnerable. Every Saturday morning, he walked from his apartment building on Jalan Gombak to the nearby mosque for Fajr prayers, the first prayer of the day that occurs before dawn. This walk, taking perhaps 10 minutes through quiet residential streets, became the killing zone. It offered the perfect combination of isolation and predictability. Few people would be awake. Traffic would be minimal. The target would be alone and unguarded. On the morning of April 21, 2018, at approximately 6:15 a.m., two men on a powerful motorcycle positioned themselves along Dr. Al-Bach's route. Witnesses later described them as wearing full-face helmets, making identification impossible. As the professor walked along the tree-lined street, the motorcycle accelerated toward him. The passenger drew a pistol fitted with a suppressor. Modern ballistic analysis and witness accounts suggest they used a 9mm handgun, likely a Glock or similar weapon favored by intelligence agencies for its reliability. The first shots struck Dr. Al-Bach in the chest and abdomen. He stumbled backward, attempting to shield himself, but the shooter continued firing methodically. 10 shots total. 4 struck the head and upper body, ensuring death. This wasn't a panicked spray of bullets. This was a professional execution, each shot deliberate. The entire attack lasted perhaps 15 seconds. By the time residents looked out their windows toward the sound of gunfire, the motorcycle was already accelerating away, disappearing into the warren of streets that make up Kuala Lumpur's Setapak neighborhood. The escape route had been planned with equal precision. Kuala Lumpur's traffic and maze-like road network provide countless options for losing pursuit. Within minutes, the motorcycle would have reached a predetermined location where the operatives switched vehicles, changed clothes, and separated. By the time Malaysian police began setting up roadblocks, the killers were already far from the scene. Their weapons ditched in a location where they'd never be recovered, their appearance completely transformed. Malaysian authorities arrived to find Dr. Al-Bach lying in a pool of blood on the sidewalk. Paramedics pronounced him dead at the scene. His wife, hearing the commotion, rushed outside to find her husband's body. Security cameras in the area had captured blurry footage of the motorcycle, but nothing clear enough for identification. Shell casings were recovered, but the weapons would never be found. The investigation hit dead ends at every turn. What made this operation particularly bold was its location. Malaysia has no diplomatic relations with Israel. If operatives were caught, they would face severe penalties with no possibility of official Israeli intervention. Yet Mossad had struck anyway, sending an unmistakable message. Nowhere is safe for those deemed threats to Israeli security. The operation demonstrated reach, capability, and a willingness to act even in the most challenging environments. Within hours, Hamas officials in Gaza were holding press conferences, declaring that Dr. al-Batsh had been assassinated by the criminal Mossad. Israel, as always in such cases, said nothing, but intelligence analysts worldwide recognized the signature. Chapter 3. The Fallout. Malaysia's investigation and international response. The assassination of Dr. Fadi al-Batsh created an immediate diplomatic crisis for Malaysia and sent shockwaves through the Palestinian community worldwide. Within 24 hours of the killing, Malaysian authorities launched what they promised would be a thorough investigation. Police Inspector General Muhammad Fuzi Harun announced that multiple investigative teams had been formed, CCTV footage was being analyzed, and witnesses were being interviewed. But from the beginning, Malaysian officials faced a fundamental problem. They were investigating professionals who had vanished without leaving viable leads. Hamas moved quickly to shape the narrative. Senior officials in Gaza held press conferences declaring that Dr. al-Batsh had been murdered by Mossad because of his scientific excellence and his work that threatened Israeli security. They portrayed him as a martyr, a brilliant scientist killed for using his knowledge to serve the Palestinian cause. Thousands attended his funeral in Gaza, where his body was returned for burial. Hamas military wing spokesman Abu Ubaidah declared that the assassination will not succeed in stopping the resistance or deterring its fighters and scientists. The message was clear. Dr. al-Batsh had been targeted for his contribution to Hamas's military capabilities, specifically drone technology. The Malaysian government found itself in an awkward position. As a Muslim-majority nation with strong public sympathy for the Palestinian cause, there was tremendous domestic pressure to condemn Israel and demand accountability. The Palestinian ambassador to Malaysia held meetings with government officials, demanding justice and requesting Malaysian cooperation in pursuing those responsible. Pro-Palestinian demonstrations erupted in Kuala Lumpur, with protesters burning Israeli flags and demanding action. Malaysian politicians, particularly from opposition parties, criticized the government's inability to protect a Palestinian refugee on Malaysian soil. But Malaysia's investigation encountered obstacle after obstacle. The security footage showed the attackers wore full helmets and gloves, leaving no identifiable features or fingerprints. The motorcycle used in the attack was found burned in a remote area days later, eliminating forensic evidence. Shell casings recovered from the scene provided no useful leads. Witnesses could offer only vague descriptions. Most critically, the operatives had clearly left Malaysia quickly after the hit, likely using false passports that allowed them to slip through immigration controls before authorities even knew what to look for. Malaysian police publicly announced they were seeking two European-looking men captured on CCTV footage near the assassination site in the days before the killing, suggesting these might be surveillance operatives conducting reconnaissance. But the trail went cold. No arrests were ever made. No suspects were ever identified by name. The investigation, despite Malaysian authorities' public assurances, effectively stalled within weeks. This pattern is familiar in cases of suspected Mossad operations. Even when local authorities want to solve the case, the operational security employed by Israeli intelligence makes it nearly impossible. Internationally, the assassination received surprisingly little attention beyond regional media. Western governments remained silent. Israel, adhering to its long-standing policy of neither confirming nor denying such operations, offered no comment. The United States, Israel's closest ally, said nothing publicly about the incident. For intelligence agencies worldwide, however, the killing served as another data point in understanding Mossad's global reach and willingness to conduct lethal operations far from Israeli borders. The incident also raised uncomfortable questions about Malaysian security. How had foreign operatives entered the country, conducted surveillance, executed an assassination, and escaped without detection? Critics pointed to gaps in Malaysia's intelligence capabilities and border security, but defenders of Malaysian authorities noted the obvious. When facing one of the world's most sophisticated intelligence services, with decades of experience in covert operations and essentially unlimited resources for a high-priority target, most countries would struggle to prevent such an attack. For the Palestinian community in Malaysia, which numbers in the thousands, the assassination created fear and paranoia. If Israel could strike in Kuala Lumpur, nowhere was safe. Palestinian students and activists became more cautious, more aware that their activities might be monitored by intelligence services thousands of miles away. The killing had achieved one of its likely secondary objectives, creating a chilling effect, making others think twice about contributing their expertise to Hamas's military programs. By late 2018, the Malaysian investigation had effectively gone quiet. No new leads emerged, no arrests were made. The case remained open officially, but resources were directed elsewhere. Dr. Al-Batch's widow and children tried to rebuild their lives, now without a husband and father. And in Gaza, Hamas continued its drone development program, eventually producing increasingly sophisticated, unmanned aerial vehicles. But they did so without Dr. Al-Batch's expertise, and that was precisely the point. Chapter 4. The Bigger Picture. Mossad's Global Shadow War. The assassination of Dr. Fadi al-Batch wasn't an isolated incident, but rather one operation in a decades-long shadow war that Israeli intelligence has waged against threats to Israeli security. Understanding this single killing requires understanding the broader context of how Israel deals with enemies it cannot confront through conventional military or diplomatic means. Mossad's history of targeted assassinations stretches back to the founding of the Israeli state, evolving from crude operations to sophisticated campaigns that combine intelligence gathering, advanced technology, and ruthless execution. The doctrine behind these operations is straightforward. When Israel identifies individuals who pose direct threats to national security, particularly those involved in developing weapons, planning attacks, or organizing terrorist networks, and when these individuals operate beyond the reach of Israeli law enforcement or military action, Mossad reserves the right to eliminate them wherever they are. This approach, controversial and illegal under international law, has nonetheless proven effective from Israel's strategic perspective. It disrupts enemy operations, eliminates key expertise, and sends powerful deterrent messages. Dr. al-Batch's case fits precisely into this framework. He wasn't a military commander planning suicide bombings or a terrorist organizer coordinating attacks. He was a scientist whose knowledge threatened to shift the tactical balance. Hamas's growing drone capabilities represented a new security challenge for Israel. Traditional air defenses excel against conventional aircraft and missiles, but struggle with small, agile drones that can fly low, maneuver unexpectedly, and carry explosive payloads or surveillance equipment. A coordinated drone swarm could theoretically overwhelm defenses, gather intelligence on military positions, or even assassinate high-value targets. From Israel's perspective, stopping drone development meant eliminating the experts making it possible. This approach mirrors other historical Mossad operations against weapons developers. During the 1960s, Israel assassinated German scientists working for Egypt's missile program. In the 1970s and 1980s, Iraqi nuclear scientists were targeted. After 2010, Iranian nuclear scientists faced a systematic assassination campaign with at least 5 killed in various attacks. In each case, Israel calculated that eliminating key individuals would set back weapons programs by years, buying time for other strategic options. The approach is brutal, but from a purely tactical standpoint, effective. What made the Al-Batch operation particularly significant was its location. Malaysia isn't a war zone. It's a modern, stable country with functioning law enforcement and no ongoing conflict with Israel. Yet Mossad operated there anyway, demonstrating that geography provides no sanctuary. This has profound implications for anyone Israel considers a threat. You can't hide by simply leaving the Middle East. Living in London, Kuala Lumpur, or Buenos Aires offers no protection if Israeli intelligence decides you're a sufficient threat. This psychological dimension, creating fear and uncertainty among potential targets, is as important as the physical elimination itself. Critics argue that such operations violate international law, constitute extrajudicial killings, and undermine the global legal order. They point out that Israel's broad definition of legitimate targets could justify almost any killing of Palestinians involved in resistance activities, even those far removed from direct violence. Human rights organizations have condemned these assassinations, noting that they deny targets any legal process, often kill bystanders, and amount to state-sponsored murder. Malaysia's then Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad called Israel a criminal state and accused it of carrying out state terrorism. But from Israel's security perspective, the moral calculation differs. Israeli officials argue they face an existential threat from groups explicitly committed to their destruction. Hamas's charter calls for eliminating Israel. Iran funds proxy forces dedicated to attacking Israeli citizens. In this context, Israeli policymakers argue that targeted killings of weapons developers, military commanders, and terrorist planners are legitimate self-defense, preempting future attacks that could kill hundreds or thousands of Israelis. They point out that democratic countries like the United States conduct similar targeted killings through drone strikes, though with different legal justifications. The Al-Batch assassination also highlights the technological sophistication of modern intelligence operations. Mossad didn't just send assassins. They conducted months of surveillance, likely using cyber intelligence to monitor communications, human intelligence sources to track movements, and technical surveillance to establish patterns. They coordinated logistics across multiple countries, moved operatives in and out without detection, and executed with precision. This level of capability costs billions of dollars and decades of institutional development. Few intelligence services worldwide could replicate it. Looking forward, the shadow war continues. Hamas still develops drones, now with Iranian assistance. Mossad still tracks weapons developers wherever they operate. The cycle of target identification, surveillance, and elimination continues in dozens of countries across multiple continents. Dr. Al-Batch won't be the last scientist killed for his expertise. The morning he walked to prayers, he became another casualty in a conflict with no clear end in sight, where brilliance in engineering becomes a death sentence, and a quiet street in Malaysia becomes a battlefield in an invisible war.